Imagine a cold so deep it freezes the moisture in your breath before it leaves your lips. You are standing in the pitch black of a Scandinavian winter, where the sun hasn't been seen for weeks. The temperature is a bone-shattering minus 30 degrees Celsius. Your fur cloak is stiff with frost. In this frozen hellscape, a salad won't save you. A lean chicken breast is useless. To survive this, you need to turn your stomach into a furnace. You need the one thing modern diet culture hates: fat. Pure, unadulterated, blubber-thick fat. For the Vikings, winter wasn't just a season, it was a siege. And their weapon of choice wasn't a sword, it was a spoon dipped in whale oil. We often picture them feasting on roast boar, but the reality was far grimier. They survived on food that would make a modern stomach retch: fermented shark, sour blood, and butter buried in swamps for years. Why? Because when the cold tries to kill you from the outside, you have to burn it back from the inside. But eating fat was the easy part. The real nightmare was finding food when the world was dead. How do you keep meat fresh without a refrigerator, salt, or sun? The answer lies in a technique so grotesque yet brilliant that it kept the Norsemen alive while others froze. Welcome to the world of controlled rot. In the absence of salt, which was a luxury commodity, the Vikings turned to nature's most dangerous preserver: fermentation. They didn't just dry fish, they let it decay. Take rackfisk, for example. They would catch trout, gut it, and bury it in barrels underground for months. In the darkness of the earth, enzymes broke down the flesh, turning it into a jelly-like substance that smelled like ammonia and old cheese. To us, it smells like death. To a starving Viking, it smelled like life. This wasn't just about storage, it was about chemistry. Fermentation pre-digested the food, making the nutrients instantly accessible to a body exhausted by the cold. It also created a chaotic environment where good bacteria killed the bad, preserving the meat indefinitely. They applied this to everything. Lamb was packed into stomachs and left to sour. Blood was mixed with flour and left to cure in the cold halls. They essentially ate probiotics on steroids, fortifying their gut health against the winter plagues. But if rotting fish sounds bad, wait until you hear about their butter vault. The Vikings realized that peat bogs, acidic, oxygen-free swamps, were perfect time capsules. They would take huge wooden kegs of butter and sink them into the muck. This bog butter could stay edible for years, even centuries. Archaeologists have found kegs that are over 3,000 years old. The butter inside turned to a waxy, white substance, but theoretically still edible. The bog added a distinct, earthy, acrid flavor that the Vikings seemingly enjoyed. It was a high-calorie treasure chest, hidden from thieves and shielded from spoilage, ready to be dug up when the granaries were empty. However, preservation was only half the battle. Once you had the food, you had to know how to eat it. In a world where a single calorie could mean the difference between waking up or freezing to death, the Vikings developed a strict eating schedule that mirrored the harshness of their environment. They practiced the original intermittent fasting, but not for weight loss. It was calorie conservation. Breakfast was often skipped or consisted of a mere cup of hot broth to wake up the digestion. They saved their energy for the single, massive meal at dusk, the dagmaal. This wasn't a plated dinner. It was a perpetual stew. Imagine a cauldron that never leaves the fire. Every day, new scraps, fish heads, bones, turnips, dried meat are thrown in. The broth darkens, thickens, and concentrates over weeks. A bowl of this Viking napalm could contain over 1,000 calories. It was greasy, heavy, and hot enough to raise your core temperature by several degrees. The layer of fat floating on top acted as a lid, sealing the heat and flavor in. They didn't eat for pleasure, they ate for thermal mass. The sensation of a heavy, hot belly was the only comfort in a longhouse where the walls were covered in frost. But amidst this grueling diet of rot and grease, there was a demographic that couldn't stomach the stew: the babies. How do you keep a newborn alive when the milk freezes in the pail? Viking mothers were the ultimate survivalists. Breastfeeding was non-negotiable and extended for years, providing a sterile, warm, fat-rich food source. But when weaning time came, they didn't have Gerber. They chewed the food themselves, bread, meat, fat, pre-mashing it with their own saliva to start the digestion process before feeding it to the infant. It was intimate and essential. They also utilized survival pacifiers. A strip of leather soaked in bone broth or a piece of animal fat tied to a string. The baby would suck on it for hours, extracting tiny amounts of fat and protein. It kept them quiet, it kept them fed, and most importantly, the digestion of that fat generated internal body heat. In the Viking nursery, calories were the only blanket that mattered. Yet, despite the harshness, the Vikings were not without joy. They found ways to turn the freezing landscape into a tool for luxury, creating treats that seem impossible for the time. Believe it or not, Vikings had ice cream, or their version of it. In the deep winter, they would mix snow with sweetened dairy curds or mashed berries, creating a frozen treat for feasts. They also mastered the art of the flash chill. After a hunt, a horn of hot mead would be buried in a snowbank. As the liquid cooled, it became syrupy and potent, a Viking slushy that got you drunk and cooled you down after sweating by the fire. They also tapped birch trees in the spring, drinking the sap straight or fermenting it into a light, mineral-rich wine. These small acts of culinary creativity prove that even in the darkest winters, the human spirit craves more than just survival. It craves pleasure. But perhaps the most genius invention was their refrigerator. Long before electricity, the Vikings built ice houses, deep pits, insulated with straw and packed with river ice harvested in January. These underground lockers kept meat frozen well into the summer, but keeping the food cold was easy. Keeping the predators out was the hard part. Wolves, bears, and foxes could smell a stash from miles away. The solution? Chemical warfare. Vikings would mark the perimeter of their food stores with wolf urine or bear fat. To a scavenger, this signaled, "This territory is claimed by an alpha predator." It was a biological fence that kept their winter horde safe. This combination of engineering, biology, and sheer grit allowed them to thrive where others perished. So, the next time you complain about your leftovers, remember the Viking with his bowl of 3-week-old stew and his side of fermented shark. They didn't just eat to live, they ate to conquer the cold. Their diet was a masterclass in efficiency, turning the brutal resources of the North into the energy that powered their expansion across the seas. If you have the stomach for more history, hit that subscribe button. We peel back the sanitized layers of the past to show you the grit, the grime, and the glory. Would you try a spoonful of bog butter? Let us know in the comments below. Stay warm and stay hungry.